Hi. In this presentation, I want to talk about making our code a little bit more professional and consistent looking. So let's start with bluej. So if you look at bluej, right, we start a new project and maybe call it practice, and then we create a class, and maybe we can call it sample app. Okay, and usually what we would do is create just a simple application. So let's get rid of everything and write a simple application, right? So we talked about the concept of we really need to have the Java documentation when we have some description for our application, and then at least we're gonna have a author and at least the version tags. Okay, so you put your name in there, and for version you can use either just numbers or the date when you are modifying your application. Okay, so same thing for every single methods. Okay, so we have the description, and then methods do not have authors or version. The description should follow the parameters. Okay, so in this case we have args. Args is a string array that the application receives from the command line. So you have to have as many param tags as many parameters you have. And then with methods we have return value. Okay, so in this case it's not going to be any return, and then at least we would talk about or mention what your method would throw. So so right now nothing is implemented. Okay, so when we look at the documentation, okay, we have the description, we have the version, we have the author. Okay, same thing for our methods. So every single method has description, parameters, return value if any, and if it throws something. Okay, so that's what makes it more professional. Okay, but this is our application. This is what it does, right? So if we compile this, okay, that's not util, right? Blank. Okay. So if we compile this and then we run the application, you can see we have the description, we have all the tags, so it looks nice and complete. But when you look at the application, there's really no welcoming of the user, there's no thanking the user that they used your application. Okay, so that might be something that you want to include. And as far as professional college level code, I would expect you that you have some kind of welcoming and thank you message for every single application of yours. Okay, so that's what we're going to be talking about. So in this particular case, you can go online to our course and we can download the greetings.jar. So it's going to be just a simple 3-class jar file that we're going to be using, that I just put together. Using this jar file also going to allow you to understand how to use somebody else's libraries and how to use path, right? Because we talked about the kind of concept before, that we really need to know the API, the Java API, and use the Java API in order to learn Java. So that's why I recommend that when you are using any class in Java, even if it's coming from the lang folder, okay, make sure that you use the absolute path to all of the classes, because that's how you're gonna get used to it. That's how you're gonna learn how to use these classes. Okay, so same thing with the system. System is also gonna be in lang. Okay, so this is what you should be doing in order when you are learning Java. Okay, doing it pretty much the hard way before you get into the easier way, right? So we know that we can do import, and with the import we can import string, we can import math class if we need to, okay, or system, right? In that case, we would not need to use the absolute path to all those classes. The simpler way would be just to say all classes under java.lang. But we know that Java gonna do this for us automatically, so we really don't need to use this at all, okay? And we really don't need to use the full path because the import of java.lang is already done by Java, so we don't need that neither. But just to get used to it, you're doing it kind of redundantly, but that's perfectly fine. Okay, so let's see if we can be somewhat friendly to our users. Okay, so let's see. We have the greetings.jar, so you download that greetings.jar file, okay? You copy that, you find your bluej installation folder, wherever you installed bluej. You go to bluej, you go to lib subdirectory, and from lib subdirectory you go to user lib, and you paste it in here, okay? And that's all you need to do. So now when I run bluej and I go to Tools, Preferences, and I look at the libraries, you can see that the library is loaded. Now if you want to use somebody's library just one time and you don't want to add it to this IDE, you can add it from here. Okay, so we can add it directly from here. Okay, now in order to do this, after we add all the different libraries, we need to restart bluej. Okay, so we don't need that, we already have it from the user library subdirectory. It is loaded. Okay, so okay, let's create another one. So let's just call it, let's say, practice 2. Okay, and in this practice 2, we create our application, and we're gonna call it simple app. Okay. Or, well, we already created this, so let me remove this. Okay, open recent. Open a project. Okay, here it is. Okay, so we have the basic application, but we would like to also welcome users. So in order to welcome our users, we need to use this new class. Okay, so what we're going to be able to do is use the class, and you can see that this particular class, which is my course, is in this path, and we are not instantiating the class. So the info1 method does not belong to any one of the objects, so info1 must be a static method. Okay, and we have another method that's info2, so we're gonna be able to use that. So make sure that you understand the path. Okay, so this is a custom path. It's not a standard Java path, but it's gonna work just fine for us. Okay, and this way you're gonna get more comfortable using Java. That's why I want you to use the long absolute path to every single one of the classes. Okay, so we have two other classes in our jar file. So this is where we import the two available classes. Okay, and at that point, what we're gonna be able to do is actually welcome our customer or our user. And when we welcome the user, we also have a method in the class that is actually overwriting the toString method, so we can just print out the message, this simple format, right? So this would be kind of like the header for our application. And when we're done running the application, that we can instantiate another class. That's going to be the appreciate class. And appreciate class also has an overridden method, which is a toString, so we don't have to write anything else. Just send the object to the println method. Okay, and again, just to be consistent and make sure that we understand what we are trying to do. Okay, we can use the long path, the absolute path to our class. We do not have to use that with appreciate because we are importing it. Okay, but we can also put the long path in front of these classes if we were let's say we're not going to import this one. Okay, so this case, just to practice, you can see that welcome gonna work. Why does it work? Because we imported the path for that welcome class. Appreciate is not imported, but appreciate is called directly with the absolute path. Okay, so that's gonna allow us to compile the code. Okay, so now when we run the application, you can see that depending which course or which message that you call, the info1 or info2, okay, now you are using those static methods, right? So here's the info1. Info1 gives you this message, and info2 gives you this message. You can see that the object, the welcome object, the overridden method call, the overridden method is basically formatting a nice welcome banner for the application, and then we do whatever we need to do in this application, and then we are thanking the user for using our application. Okay, now that would be a more professional looking application, and you don't ever have to do anything at all. So in this case, if you are in the first, let's say first Java class, right? Maybe I'm gonna swap these around, and I want to make sure that you're gonna be welcomed first, and then some information gonna be displayed about the class. Okay, so when we run the application, then you can see here's the information, welcome, do whatever you need to do in the application, and then you're thanking the user. So now what you did basically is you create this banner and the footer, the header and the footer for your applications, and now you can be consistent. Every single application that you have to write, you don't have to write the classes or the methods, it's already written for you. And I mean, I'm not going to show you the source code for it, okay? I do want you to look into the actual class in order to find out really what does it do, okay? So even if you look at the jar file, the original jar file, okay, the jar file is nothing but a zip file. So if we rename this file name to zip, okay, the nice thing about the zip is that we can extract all the files. Okay, so when you look at it, here's the RLC, this is Zoltan, COSC, and here are the three classes, right? So you don't get the source code. These are already the bytecode, the compiled bytecode. But now what you can do, here's the documentation, and you can open up the documentation, and you can see that this documentation looks exactly like the standard Java documentation, and then you can look at it and say, okay, what is this my course? Okay, here's the description, the version, the author. So that's why you also need to use that, right? Because we're not familiar with this my course class. I don't know what that is, okay? And I don't know what the info 1 and info 2 is. So in order to figure it out, I need to use the description. I'm reading the description, and if it still doesn't make sense, right, then I can click on the method, and then I can read something more about the method, right? So this is a really simple method. Here the key component is that it is static, and that's why we do not have to instantiate the class. We can just use it, okay? So what about the welcome? Okay, again, you have description, the version, the author. You have, seems like we have some constructors. So we can have a no arg constructor, or we can have our own message. So it seems like we can have our own message sent to it. ToString method is overloaded, but if I just want to read the message out of the class, I can just use print message, right? So again, the print message, the welcome, the constructor has a description, and if it has perimeter, it is explained, okay? What is it overriding? What's the return value, if it's any, right? Print message seems like it doesn't return anything, but it's going to print something out, okay? So here you only have 3 classes based on this custom jar file, but you need to use that in order to learn what the class is doing. And that's why I don't want to show you the actual source code, okay? If you need to see the source code, let me know. I give you the source code, but I really just want you to learn how to use somebody else's jar file, okay? And you know, I mean, it's not that hard to implement. It's a simple 3 little classes. Okay, so you can open up the jar file as a zip file, extract the files out of it, and then you have access to the documentation. Okay, other IDEs will allow you to incorporate the documentation into the IDE, and I'm going to show you that in the next presentation when we talk about Eclipse and how to use this jar file in Eclipse. Okay, so let's go back here. Now that we learned that we can have our own message, right? So the welcome message allows me to put in a my own message when I use the constructor, because the constructor takes a string. So maybe I just want to say welcome to my course. Welcome to my course. I hope you enjoy it. Okay. Compile it. So now I'm using the second constructor, and with this constructor, when I run the application, okay, you can see now the message changed. So we're not using the no arg constructor anymore, but we're using a constructor with a custom string. Okay. So this is what I want you to use in all of your applications. Okay. So make sure that we create this professional looking application when we welcome the user, we thank the user, and then we have Java docs in order to generate the documentation for the class, because when we give our class to somebody, it's already going to be the compiled version. So they're not going to have access to the source code to see what it does. We have to write it down in documentation and explain how to use our own methods. Okay, so next video I'll show you how to do the same thing in Eclipse. So see you next time.